What's up? I'm going to show you how to mix drums by using the recently released Theatria song, Daddy Issues. We're gonna start. We're starting right now. So this is what the raw drums sound like. That's it. That's the raw drums. I'll walk you through what tracks we even have here. Lots of buses, lots of sends, lots of nonsense. Up top, we've got what's labeled AFI kick and AFI snare. After doing AFI Sing the Sorrow, I was like, I really like these drum sounds I got. So I just bounced out like a one shot, like overheads, room, like everything's in it, sample of the kick, the snare, and then the rack and the floor. But I don't like sampling toms, so I don't actually use those two. I do use the kick and the snare though pretty liberally, particularly the kick does a lot of heavy lifting in this mix. Let me get rid of these fucking lines. I can't see a thing. There we go. So we've got our kick drum track underneath. So that's the kick drum, and then the kick aux underneath is a one-shot kick sample from this session. I didn't know for sure from like a songwriting production arrangement standpoint what I wanted the kick drum to do in the first verse. So I just copied and pasted in these drum hits here. Punchy kick is a sample only used for the first verse, which we will get into. Snare drum track. A lot wrong with that, and we'll get into it. A sample to reinforce it there. I sliced off the ghost notes. You can see here, it's the same waveform. I just duplicated it, clip muted everything that wasn't a ghost note. I think there's only two little drags in the whole song. I processed those separately because I don't want to deal with automating gates any more than I already do, which I already do. We've got our toms, rack, and floor. And again, this is all raw that we're hearing at the moment. They sound like toms. It's great. We've got a hi-hat mic, and that was an Audix i5. Certainly sounds like hi-hats if you ask me. Overheads. Sound like overheads, I would expect nothing less. I've got a track here called Extra Crash. It's a pair of tracks summed up. All it is a one-shot crash that I use to accent certain beats. Because Dixon, my band's drummer, he plays really hard. It's cool. I love it. But when there's supposed to be something that's accented, like he's already at 11, and sure, he hits harder, but the cymbal can only go so loud. So he's already, riding it at like 8 or 9. So when he hits it at a 10, I need it to be a 12 to 13, so I add just the same cymbals. We tracked these like in the same session, just like after or before. I think it was before, so we could grab like tom hits while the tuning was still fresh. Regardless, crash. Going into the chorus here, let me just like solo the overheads. You hear the second like crash/ride hit. It's basically as loud as the first one of beat one of the chorus. So in order to sort of remedy that, I added in this. And now it actually sparkles and pops, which is really neat. And we'll get into how I have those mixed, as we go down the line. And then the room. This was a Slate ML2. I have a kitchen off the studio, so this is the kitchen mic. And it was, I want to say 3 feet away from the door into the studio, pointed at the door. So it's a lot of early reflection from within another room, while also being pointed at the room the drums were in. It sounds not good, but it's really cool and trashy. And one aspect of it being in another room is the low frequencies are like a little delayed, and it adds this really cool wub. So I have the track labeled. You can see there, room, I guess it would be above me, probably, is where I'll put me in this. It says room 2 because there was another room mic in the room with the drums called room 1, which just didn't get used in this song because it's a slower song, like sort of mid-tempo for us. It's really slow. I was able to use that space in the low end where a lot of the other songs are like more punk. I'm talking about it as if you've heard them. So Daddy Issues came out June 18th, 2021. The rest of the songs aren't coming out till like autumn at the earliest. So just for context, if anyone not from the future is watching this, I'm talking about songs as if they already exist. You haven't heard them yet unless you're from the future. But I digress. I used 2 room mics, one sort of looser, one tight, and I went with the loose one for this song. I do drums differently every single time. I don't like getting stuck in routine. Also, I quit recording for like 2.5 years. So coming back in, a lot of it was like fresh and new again. So what I did this time is I experimented with a few things, including the Soothe plugin on overheads and a top-down mixing approach. So I'm going to start with the drum bus, which is what we've been listening to everything through, but it's bypass, so it's just the raw drums. But I'm going to start with that soloed and then show you how I work it in, and then I sort of mix into that the whole time. So I'm going to find here, let's turn those lines back on. There's an 8-bar phrase coming out of the bridge verse later in the song. I'm going to do 4 bars of that because it's got like an open hi-hat beat with a bunch of toms and then the wide open chorus. And that's going to give us the best spread of stuff happening in the song. More or less every cymbal, every drum is hit within this 8-bar loop. And that means that I can just loop those 8 bars and focus on making everything sound balanced together when it's all happening, like within this really tight time frame. And then when we move out to the other parts of the song, it's sick because everything's already mixed, save for like automation to make things interesting. So anyway, this is the drum bus. I'm going to unbypass it. There we go. Bypass the compression there. So, I'm going to hit play. I'm going to turn it on. There, it's off now. I'm going to turn it on. You're going to hear what this does. Essentially, I turned it down a little bit because I track everything a little bit too loud. And so things tend to clip on the way in. So I'm always having to turn it down. And you'll see a lot of clipping plugins as we go to combat my own tendencies to make things clip in the bad way. I started trying to make them clip in a cool way. So bringing some of the edge of the volume down, driving it hard with the Brit N VCC, and then with an SSL EQ, I'm boosting some highs, scooping a healthy dose of mids, 500, and I mean, that's it. So here's without. When it loops back around, I'll just throw it in. Drums! And then I compress it with the FG Gray, medium fast attack. Usually I go as slow as possible, but again, it was a slower song. I said slow. Usually I go as fast as possible with the release, but it's a slower song, so I gave it like a little nudge. So instead of like 0.0, it's 0.1. I bring the threshold down to taste. Ratio is always 6.0. I like to high pass anywhere from 60 to 69 hertz in this case. To break my own heart, it was 64, which I suppose is like a Banjo-Kazooie number, so I'm not gonna complain too much. And then mix at 100%. This is a parallel drum bus, so this is mixed at 100 and then mixed in behind everything else. So I'm gonna flip it on and off while I play this clip, the compression. You might say, hey, that sounds too compressed. Sure does. And I'm gonna put the makeup gain to -18. That's our parallel drum bus. It's ready to go. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm not gonna think about it. It just is there throughout the rest of mixing. With that paralleled in, I'll put it all the way down, bring it back up in behind the raw drums. And again, aside from the parallel processing on the bus we just did, and then turn down 18 decibels, so even maxed out, it's going to be quiet. Yeah, the whole sentence left. I'm just gonna hit play. It just adds like a little bit of heft. It's not doing a ton. If you didn't do the parallel bus, your drums would sound fine, but you're not here because you want fine sounding drums. You're here because you want really cool sounding drums. So I'm going to show you how to desecrate the grave of every great mixing engineer and massacre your relatively poorly recorded drums until they sound really cool. So forewarning, and this should have gone at the beginning of the video, but here we are. I am not here to show you today that if you record great sounding drums and do nothing to them, you end up with great drum sounds. This is a show called Hardcore Mixing, I think. I don't know if I still have the rights to that name, but I'm using it. And I call it that, not because I'm mixing hardcore songs, but because my mixing is hardcore, bro. Stop texting me. Someone's texting me. So in keeping with the top-down approach to the drums, we've got our parallel drum bus off there. We've got our drums and percussion bus, which is a bus which contains drums and percussion. I also have the reverbs drum plate, drum room there. Those are in there, which momentarily we'll get to. But first, there's the overall bus, which... There we go. Let's turn it on. That got a little brighter. That was cool. What happened? So I use the SSL on the VCC on the console rather than channel setting. I added some brightness, 12K, half a deci. 2K, that's like the fun energy, like makes me think of the Foo Fighters frequency. Just shy of a decibel there. Scooped some mids, because why not? Added some lows at 60 hertz, because again, why not? That's a fun frequency. Why would you not boost it? Get out of here. And then after that, I'm running a clipper. I looked at myself and not at you. My bad. Clipped at -5 decibels, and that's just a safety clip to make sure I don't have overs. It's hopefully, by the time the song's mixed, not doing anything, but it's just keeping things under control while I get to work. So here's a before and after of that entire bus. And then we've got our drum plate reverb. I'm running Soothe. I am targeting 185 with Soothe here. We're soloing the reverb without the reverb on it. This is the send to the reverb. This is pre-reverb. You'll notice at the bottom there's a big old spike going whoop, 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 the whole way through. That's the like fundamental ringy outy note of the snare drum, which was really obnoxious, and I didn't want it in my reverb. I also didn't want that frequency to not be present in, say, the toms or the upper register of the kick drum when it hit the reverb. So I had it set so that it ducks every time the snares hit, so that it like happens and then doesn't. Without Soothe and with Soothe. It's nice. It's brighter. It's less muddy. Perfect. Reverb. It's just a like, I don't think about this stuff. I just flip around till it sounds good. But here's what the reverb sounds like, just kind of cranked. So it's like big, messy. Sounds like you're in like a shipping warehouse and someone's playing drums on the far side of it. It's a sound I wanted, you know, so I chased it. So here's what it sounds like in context behind everything, but turned up a lot. And then at the appropriate level, it just adds some bigness, nothing crazy. And then to tame some frequencies to make it sound more exciting, I EQ'd the reverb. I scooped out really broadly around that muddy frequency that the snare was poking out at. Soothe is doing the narrow cuts, so I'm using re-EQ to do a more broad cut. And then I've got a high shelf boost, mids and up, just gimme more. And then a big ol' cut down at basically where the shrillness of the hi-hat is around 5K. So without EQ, with. Nothing crazy, just, cleans it up. Put that back at the volume it was, and then it's going to be a similar process with the room. So instead of taming the lows of the room, in this case, I'm taming the highs. I'm just running a de-esser. Just kind of nicking in when the snares hit or when the hi-hats played particularly aggressively. Just ducking out some highs, nothing obscene. Got tape. So it's like close to redlining, just adding some grit before the room happens. Why is this open the way it is? I don't like that. How do I make it not do that? Do I press this button? That made it worse. Back up. Okay, I'm gonna leave that how it is. Minus 16 there. Okay, so this is what the room reverb itself sounds like when I throw it on. To me, that sounds like you're just on like the opposite side of the theoretical warehouse that the other reverb was on, just sort of complete the picture. And then I'm getting rid of the super lows, and I'm scooping a little bit of the mids because I don't like them. So this is before and after the whole chain. Let's listen to how canon-like those toms are in that reverb. Like, they're big, and that's fine, but then you put the reverb on, and it's like obnoxious. It's really cool. I'm into it. And then just like the bus processing, I'm going to set it like this. I'm going to forget about it, and I'm going to move on and let the chips fall where they may. And then one last dose of dedicated bus processing, and we'll actually get into how I process the individual drums. Get out of here, reverb. I don't want to see you, girl. Don't wanna see you, girl. Got 3 plugins working together to create one sort of overall swipe, stroke of the paintbrush is the word I was trying to say. Doing a high pass because the lows can get out of control, so 30 hertz, get out of here. I'm boosting a decibel of 500. I'm gonna scoop a lot, and I wanted to just give a little bit more life to the drums, and then I am cutting a little bit around 8K because particularly on snare drums, I have a tendency to boost a lot in that area, and that just sort of keeps me in my lane without ruining my fun. And if you're not having fun, why are you mixing, right? So this is sort of my leash, this EQ here. And then again, there's a safety clipper, 4 decibels and over, gets snipped right off, and then I'm running that into a compressor. Low ratio, medium fast attack, fast-ish release, driven to hell and back. Barely a high pass. I probably took the aggressive drive preset and then made my own mix knob. You can fact check me on that. I don't care enough to look into it right now. I just know that it sounds good. So here's what this chain as a whole sounds like before and after. In particular, listen to how the mid boost actually pops a little bit of life into the drums. Let's listen to those toms again without and then with. That mid boost, it's a little boxy, but it does something really cool, it brings out the fart of the floor tom in a way that I find pleasing. The compression isn't doing a ton, mind you, but I'll shove the mix up to 100% so you can really hear what it's doing. So it's just tightening everything up and sort of limiting the dynamic range, compressing it, if you will. So that's, in general, that's the bus processing. that I used. Let's get on to some shells.
Venus.
Videos like this are made possible by my patrons over at patreon.com/Todd Barriage. If you want access to the samples that I've made myself, I obviously can't give away samples that I have purchased and used, but any samples that I have made and designed and recorded and all that myself. There is a one-shot Borland Studio pack available on my Patreon, as well as, depending on what tier you're in, you get early access to videos, exclusive videos, and or stems from my actual session. So if you're an all-access patron, any video that I make in terms of like a mixing video, I provide the stems that I use as well, so that you can mix along if you want, or make your own mix. I mean, it's up to you. Obviously, you can't release the song as if it's your own, but you can get a lot of practice in, you know? I'm gonna thank Nathan, Fabian, James, Parker, Blake, Dave, Ethan, Jessica, Kip, Josh, and Noah. I only had to record that in 3 parts. That's my ADD meds working. Anyway, thank you, y'all aforementioned folks, for making stuff like this feasible for me again in this day and age of like being in my 30s and having to, you know, not just do cool shit all the time. You allow me to do cool shit a lot more of the time. So thank you, and I'll see ya. Bye.